Welcome to the, no, I think it's the 8th weekly build, I think, maybe 7th. You can see in the title. But yeah, anyway, the focus of this week will be strategical for the first time. And more specifically, it will be on win conditions, and which basically means setting a goal for how you want to win the game. And specifically training to use one of these, which is the maxed out all-in type of win condition, which is quite important for Protoss, I think. The way in which we will do this with this build is open up with Phoenix Colossus and then transition to a Void Ray Tempest Phoenix Colossus maxed attack, which is supposed to be a very powerful attack with low worker count and powerful supply efficient units. So the opening build is the usual fast expand, gate, gas, expand, cyber on 20, and on 22, 21 start the simulator and the pylon. Everything just like usual. And you can probe scout if you want to be safe. Chronoboost and Adept as soon as possible. Starts a Stargate and Warp Gate. And continue building probes and also Chronoboost this. Start a second Adept because it's much easier to defend against the Reaper when you have two Adepts. So then you can have one blocking the back path and one at the front, so that if the Reaper wants to scout your Stargate, it's gonna have to sacrifice itself. If you only have one Adept, it can be hard to even defend your probes. And even harder to actually kill the Reaper if it goes in and scouts. You can also start a third gateway unit if you want to make it easier against Hellions and stuff like that. When the Stargate finishes, Oracle instantly. I took the gases very fast at a natural, but I also only have 2 mining here. That's just slightly more resource efficient for the mid game, for the later stages. If you think you can afford it, you can do that. Otherwise, just keep 3 in gases and take a single gas instead. But the goal is not to gain an eco advantage, which you normally do. The goal is to get the Phoenixes and the very fast Colossus so that you're always staying ahead on army tech and army upgrades, so that you have a very powerful army. You don't need economy because you're gonna stop probing quite early anyway. So it's we're keeping it simple this week. We just want to defend the workers that we have as easily as possible and build a power army rather than trying to build as much economy as possible at the same time. That's not really necessary. Stargate units can go scout. I had the luxury of scouting with an Adept. Otherwise the Oracle can go straight across. But against any kind of harassment, the Phoenixes and the Oracle are excellent at helping against that. Against a Cyclone you probably want a Stalker, just so that you can kill it faster after the Phoenix lifts it. And after defending the harass type aggression, such as a Widowmine drop or a Banshee or a Hellion run by, and anything that's aimed at killing workers, that's what the Phoenixes are for. They're meant to deny that and shut it down cost efficiently. Once that is taken care of, we want the Colossus instantly, because the Colossus is what's gonna make the army able to actually fight. any scouting is helpful, so that we can see that there's no expansion. Probably should have checked here too. Because you want to be mirroring the opponent in terms of bases. So this is if you read the guide, this is a very common situation where you need to reevaluate your goals. I just lost 12 workers, but I didn't lose any army, and I also scouted 2 banshees, which means that his army is gonna suffer. So this might have been a good idea to just attack instead, but because I don't have a third, because I'm not relying on an eco lead, I simply start probing again. And this is gonna give me less resources, of course, because I lost some workers, but I can at least be happy with killing some banshees for free, or killing some banshees for that loss. So I decided to stick with the plan. If you have a shield battery, it's much easier to defend with a colossus. Because then you have 300 extra hit points. You also should get a sentry, which I lost against the banshees. So if you have guardian shield and a shield battery and a colossus and some zealots to block, then this many marines will not even be close to killing the colossus. But the raven was used to disable it, and there's no shield battery here, which made this harder than it could have been. But I'm still very ahead here, just by resources lost. But yeah, getting back to the build, you want the colossus to take down any kind of aggression like this. If there is a raven specifically, that's a little bit problematic. Try to kill it with the phoenixes in the middle of the map if possible. But getting back to the build, just taking a third when you think that they're taking a third. Probe it up, but not too high. Try to take the gases, because we're gonna be making a very gas heavy army. And just start any upgrades really from the forge. They're all gonna be beneficial for different reasons. The shield, because you have lots of air units. The attack for the colossus, and the armor for basically any ground units that you have left. It might be best, I think this game I go for a Twilight so that I can get +2. I think that might be unnecessary now that I think about it. It might be fine to just get these free upgrades instead. And then you save a little bit of gas, not getting charge. Of course, this is if you have the luxury of not needing charge. If you're forced into making lots of salads here, then you might want charge, so that it's easier to stay alive. I did go for the double robo version that I wrote in the guide, but simply you can just get the robo and just get the stargates quicker instead. This is just if you want something to do while building a death army, a doom army, and stopping at 66 workers. So somewhere around there seems reasonable. If you go for more workers than this, you're gonna have to kill them when you're nearing max. But that's fine if you want to do that. Colossus range, as I said, it can also be, or as I wrote, it can be delayed. The important infrastructure are these stargates, which I should make quicker than I am right now. very important upgrade, the Phoenix attack. I have the gases at the 4th, so the economy, I really have everything I need in terms of economy. And once you get to somewhere around here, 186, I should transition to Phoenixes instead of Void Rays, so that they reinforce quicker. So like, I didn't play this too great, as you will see, but looking at this replay, what I should have done is, at this moment, I should have realized that I'm nearing maxed. Try to kill the salads as soon as I can. Actually, this is the supply of 4 more Void Rays, so what I should make is 4 more Void Rays here. Chrono boost these 2 Stargates, because they were a bit behind these 2. This upgrade is gonna finish. I will not have time for another one, so just stop upgrading. And throw away the salads, and as soon as this finishes, this 4, move the army out and reinforce with Phoenixes. And then you will hit a powerful maxed army with not much bank. What I did instead was I started Void Rays at the end. Which I forgot to reinforce with. Even I waited for them but forgot to reinforce with them. But just to look at this fight briefly. Again, this is not the best army. The opponent should be abusing this. I guess I have enough Vikings, enough Phoenixes to deal with the Vikings alone. The Vikings should have armor upgrades against the Phoenixes. So I should win this fight alone actually, which means that he only has a 2 range advantage. But the Void Rays are slower. The Void Rays only have 6 range. So what he should do here is kite this army with the Vikings, so that the Phoenixes has to fight these units alone. And also if there are Widow Mines, it can be problematic for the Phoenixes. Which is why you want 4 Tempests in this army, to force the Vikings to move into you, so that the Void Rays can fight. But if the Vikings are forced to fight this air army, these units are very efficient. It would have been nice to target fire Vikings with the Void Rays, now that I'm looking at this, because they have much more damage against Vikings than they have against Marines. But the Colossi kill the Marines quite quickly, so it's not that important. And here, it's always awkward after the fight. Usually the game is kind of over here, regardless of what I build. But if you want to support this all-in type play, you can warp in Salads and Stalkers, for example, and continue reinforcing with Phoenixes. So you try to use the Salads and Stalker to get on top of the production, and also the Phoenixes to fly here. Yeah, and then what I will do now is I will go into Unit Tester and show just some Phoenix and Void Ray micro, how this is supposed to be microed against Vikings. I think I will do the macro bit as well. Just because it was so disastrous in this game specifically. And I will try to do it better. Something that I am missing badly in this replay, by the way, is vision. It would have been nice to have some pylons spread, and the Phoenix patrolling perhaps. Zealots should be at watchtowers. They're not going to be used for anything anyway. So zealots can scout instead of pylons even. So these stargates should have been faster. Just to recap, like try to get the stargates up as soon as you can. And before this point, it would have been nice if I could have made 2 or 4 Tempest. Try to chrono so that it syncs up, so instead of chronoing these 2, I could have chronoed these 2, and that would have put this 10 seconds later, and this 10 seconds faster, so it would have lined up. The basic idea, I guess, is to, at somewhere around 160, 150, try to plan out how the rest of the macro is gonna look. See which upgrades you have time for, see which units you're gonna have to sacrifice, which is gonna lower your supply. And in terms of defending, if the opponent makes any kind of attack, you might want some shield batteries, but because you have such a low probe count, you should be fine against those types of attacks as long as you're microing decently. Yeah, I'm just gonna show some micro. And the reason I'm adding Void Rays into this army, because that's a little bit strange to have Void Rays, because Void Rays they're not very supply efficient. They take 4 supply. Compared to the Phoenixes, which take 2. So instead of having 1 Void Ray, you can have 2 Phoenixes. But when you have the range advantage, Void Rays are actually really strong against Vikings. And they also cost more, which means you can hit a little bit faster, at least. Which sometimes matters. In this situation, I think it matters. So just to show, you're probably gonna have +2 against +1 armor if the Terran is smart, which is usually not the case. Usually you will not see any armor, but let's pretend the Terran plays properly. So we see that Phoenixes and Vikings are actually quite evenly matched. Kiting does not help a whole lot, since the Phoenixes can move and attack at the same time. It can matter, however, if there are Widow Mines. So first of all, if you're up against Widow Mines, the Colossi are there to deal with that specifically. They have a lot of range against that. So preferably you have 1 Oracle and also an Observer, so that you can take those out with the Colossi. And if you do have the Tempests, then that is not a problem at all. And if the Terran tries to walk into you with Widow Mines, you can lift them with the Phoenixes. But yeah, we see that this was quite evenly matched, whereas the Void Ray alone will beat the Vikings quite convincingly. Or no, maybe not convincingly. But the point here is, if we mix, it starts getting interesting. Note that the Phoenix is light, the Viking has bonus against armored, so, and also this is a very high DPS unit, so these have basically the same health against the Viking. They're gonna take about the same number of shots to die. So if the Viking targets the Void Ray, this one is taken out quickly, and then the Vikings win the fight. Whereas if the Vikings instead attack the light units, the Phoenixes, first, it looks very, very different. So the takeaway is to make the Vikings attack the Void Rays. I mean, make the Vikings attack the Phoenixes, but this is not... if you're up against an A move, this is simply done by keeping the Phoenixes in front of the Void Rays. If, however, the Terran target fires, you might be in trouble. The problem is that if you have lots of units, the Vikings are gonna overkill. So target firing here is not gonna help very much. So we have way more Viking shots than we need to kill a single Void Ray. So we're wasting a lot of power as the Terran. So what's the alternative? The alternative is to A move. And then if the Phoenixes are in front, then you're gonna get this nice synergy as the Protoss. However, if you're up against a very good Terran, what they can do is they can split into several groups and target fire with each group. But the problem with this is that the Terran also has to do a lot of other micro, right? They have to split their Marines, they have to EMP. They're not gonna have time to do this, basically. You also have the Tempest, which is deciding when the fight is gonna happen, so it's quite tricky for the Terran overall. I think, and just to show this range, the power of this range advantage, quite simple. But it basically means that the Vikings cannot do any poking. If the Vikings run away here, you already killed way more than the Vikings did. Yeah, I think that's it. So if you micro the maxed army, the maxed all-in, that's gonna make it so much stronger. And as usual, most of the information is in written form. It's a big strategical rant on these win conditions and this type of all-in. It also has the build overview in written form. So that is it for this week, and I will see you next time.